Ambassador Michael Oren, one-time Israeli ambassador to the U.S., with us right now. Ambassador, thank you for being here. What are you hearing about the status of American citizens being among the dead and those held hostage? What will the U.S. do about it?
Good to be with you, Adrienne. We've heard, yes, as you heard, that there are Americans among the hostages. There are Americans among those who've been viciously murdered by Hamas and Islamic Jihad. We expect the United States to stand with us. There's been mention in the press, I haven't heard it from official sources, that the United States might also supply special forces who, like our special forces, are trained in rescue. I'd be very doubtful that would happen. But I do expect the United States to supply us with the vital munitions and other logistical support which we need. Your reporters have mentioned that beneath the surface of the state of Israel, there are billions of dollars in pre-positioned U.S. military supplies. These are used by U.S. forces in the Middle East. They're, for the most part, no longer here. But in previous engagements with Hamas and Hezbollah in Lebanon, Israel has run short on vital types of ammunition. We've asked the United States for those keys. We've gotten the keys. We take what we need. We write it down. We pay for it. And almost without exception, the United States has agreed to let us do that. This is going to be a protracted conflict, yet to be seen whether it's going to be a multi-front conflict involving also Judea, Samaria, the West Bank, and Lebanon, as well as Gaza. And we have to see whether the Israeli forces, which seems highly likely now, will actually mount a ground incursion into Gaza.
Well, it's an interesting scenario right now. I have to ask you about this exchange of the $6 billion in Iranian assets, the release of these hostages with dual citizenship. Do you believe that the White House has a responsibility to do more to assist Israel in fighting Hamas, to free American citizens, and to show their support for Israel at such a time?
Well, I would certainly like the United States to do more to stand up to Iran. That Israel would appreciate the fact that this task force 12 has moved closer in the Eastern Mediterranean to the Lebanese coast. That is Lebanon, which is host to Hezbollah, the major proxy of Iran. But I think it would be more effective if the United States would move the Fifth Fleet in the Persian Gulf closer to the Iranian coast. We're dealing here not with the tail of the snake, we're dealing with the head of the snake. The head of the snake is Iran. I'm kind of surprised by the report that appeared in the Wall Street Journal yesterday, showing that Iran is behind much of the logistical training for Hamas and for this operation. That's been well known in Israel for a very long time. I'm sitting here in South Tel Aviv. We're being pummeled by hundreds or perhaps thousands of rockets every day. 90% of those rockets are actually made in Iran. They're smuggled into the Gaza Strip. And the remaining rockets are actually engineered by Iranian engineers and put together by the Palestinians. So Iran is deeply engaged. Islamic Jihad is wholly owned and operated by Iran, and Hamas is extensively funded by Iran. So Iranian involvement here is no mystery. We take it for granted. And I would like to see a stronger American position against Iranian aggression.
Now, I've heard this off the record. It's no secret, though, highly speculated that Iran was upset because of talks between Israel and Saudi Arabia as those two tried to normalize relations. So what does it mean for the greater historical landscape of diplomacy and relations in the Middle East?
Well, I think upset by the prospect of an Israeli-Saudi peace is an understatement in terms of the Iranians. The Iranians are afraid not only that Israel and Saudi Arabia would join in a strategic front against Iran, they're afraid of Saudi nuclearization, that Saudi Arabia would get a nuclear program that would challenge Iran's nuclear program. The Saudis are taking advantage, the Iranians, are taking advantage of weakness within Israel. We've been deeply divided over political issues here, weakness in the United States. They are afraid of Donald Trump, I must say. It was Donald Trump.
Who is afraid of Donald Trump? Iran?
The Iranians are afraid of Donald Trump. They're afraid of his return. They're following the polls in the United States. They see an opportunity right now to block this deal and to preempt any presidential election that might bring about a change in the White House. And what better way to do it than start a Middle Eastern war that will deeply and perhaps irrevocably destabilize the entire region.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.